At my wife's sister's wedding, I found my seat outside next to the trash cans. She smirked. Guess you don't count. I took my gift, stood up, and walked out without a word. Minutes later, she went pale and screamed. I still remember the weight of that envelope in my jacket pocket, the one with their names written in my wife's careful handwriting, the one I'd watched her seal with actual wax because Sarah said it would be classier. $25,000 in certified checks. A year's worth of silent nights at the kitchen table, spreadsheets glowing in the dark. Rebecca asleep upstairs while I calculated and recalculated how we could afford to be generous, how we could be family. The venue was one of those converted barns that cost more than actual barns, all Edison bulbs and reclaimed wood that had probably never seen a real farm. String lights crisscrossed overhead like captured stars, and everywhere I looked there were flowers. Peonies, I think. Rebecca had mentioned peonies. She'd been talking about this wedding for 6 months, her voice pitched higher than usual. Whenever Sarah's name came up, that particular brightness that meant she was trying to convince herself of something. I arrived early because Rebecca had texted me 3 times about parking, about traffic, about making sure I was there before her family noticed I wasn't. She was already inside, had been since dawn, helping with last-minute crises that always seemed to require her specifically. I'd offered to come earlier, but she'd said no, said it was sister stuff, said she'd see me at the ceremony. Said it with that smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, the one I'd been seeing more and more lately. The parking lot was already half full, luxury sedans and SUVs glinting in the late afternoon sun. I'd driven my truck, the same one I'd had since before Rebecca and I got married, the one her mother had called charmingly rustic the first time she saw it, which I later learned meant embarrassing. I parked in the back corner, away from the Mercedes and Audis, where a scratch wouldn't matter, where I wouldn't matter. Inside, the barn was transformed into something from a magazine Rebecca sometimes left open on the coffee table, the ones with names like Elegant Weddings or Your Perfect Day. Round tables covered in ivory linens, centerpieces of more flowers and candles, a head table that looked more like a throne. The ceremony hadn't started yet, but people were already finding their seats, the quiet shuffle of expensive shoes on hardwood, the rustle of designer dresses, the low murmur of conversations I wasn't part of. I looked for my name. I'd assumed I'd be at Rebecca's family table, maybe not at the head table with the wedding party. Sarah hadn't asked me to be a groomsman, which was fine, I barely knew the groom, but somewhere close. Somewhere that acknowledged I existed, that I'd been married to Rebecca for 8 years, that I was family by law, if not by blood. I found the seating chart on an easel by the entrance, names written in gold calligraphy on a mirror framed in more flowers. Rebecca's family dominated the center tables, her parents, her aunts and uncles, cousins I'd met at Thanksgiving and Christmas and 4th of July barbecues. Their names all clustered together like a constellation I'd been orbiting for years without ever being pulled into its gravity. I traced the tables outward. Friends from Sarah's college, friends from her yoga studio, friends from her book club, coworkers from her marketing firm, each name followed by an guest. The groom's family on the other side, an equally dense cluster of names I didn't recognize. My name wasn't on any of them. I checked again, methodically, table by table, running my finger along the mirror until it left a smudge on someone called Jennifer Chen in guest. Nothing. I stepped back, looked at the whole thing, tried to find the pattern I was missing. Maybe they'd grouped people differently. Maybe there was a separate chart for family. Maybe, looking for yourself? The voice came from behind me, bright and sharp like good crystal. I turned to find Sarah's maid of honor, Amanda, I think, or Amber, holding a clipboard and wearing a dress that probably cost more than my mortgage payment. She was smiling, but it was the kind of smile that had teeth in it. Yeah, I don't see my name here. She glanced at her clipboard, flipped a page, then another. Oh, right, you're at table 17. Something in her voice made my chest tight. Table 17. Mm-hmm. She didn't look up from her clipboard. Where is that? Now she looked up, and that smile got sharper. Outside, in the patio section, we had to add some overflow seating for everyone who didn't quite fit inside. Outside. The word hung in the air between us like smoke. Through the barn's open back doors, I could see the patio she meant. A concrete slab that hadn't been decorated, hadn't been transformed, was just a place where the barn ended and the parking lot began. There were 3 folding tables set up, the cheap kind with metal legs and surfaces that wanted to be wood but weren't. No linens, no centerpieces, no string lights overhead, just the naked bulb above the barn's back door and whatever light would leak out from inside. You're kidding. It's a really big wedding. She said it like she was explaining something simple to someone slow. Sarah wanted to make sure everyone could come, but the barn only holds so many people, so we had to get creative with the space. I looked past her, into the barn, at the tables that seated 8 people, each with room to spare, at the empty chairs scattered throughout, and on at the careful arrangement that somehow had space for Jennifer Chen and guest, but not for me. Who else is at table 17? She glanced at her clipboard again. Looks like some of Greg's college friends who RSVP'd late, and a few plus ones. She paused, and that smile somehow got worse. Oh, and you're right next to the service station, so you'll be close to the bar. Silver lining. Service station. She meant the trash cans. I could see them from where I stood, large commercial bins with swinging lids, positioned at the edge of the patio where staff could easily access them. The smell of garbage hadn't started yet. Wouldn't start until dinner was served and plates were scraped, but I could imagine it. Could imagine sitting there in my good suit, the only one I owned, eating rubber chicken while the smell of other people's waste wafted over me and the real party happened inside, where the people who mattered were warm and seen and acknowledged. Right, I said. Silver lining. She was already walking away, clipboard clutched to her chest, onto the next crisis, the next detail that needed managing. I stood there looking at that seating chart, at all those names written in gold, at the space where mine should have been and wasn't. I thought about Rebecca then, about how she must have known, must have seen the seating chart, must have approved it, must have walked past it a dozen times this morning, and never thought to warn me, to apologize, to explain that I'd been relegated to the patio with the trash and the plus ones who didn't rate real seats. I thought about that text she'd sent last night. Can't wait for you to see everything tomorrow. It's going to be beautiful. And it was beautiful. I just wasn't going to see it from inside. People were starting to file in more steadily now, the ceremony scheduled to start in 20 minutes. I recognized some of them. Rebecca's cousin, Michael, who worked in finance and always wore cufflinks that cost more than my truck payment. Her Aunt Dorothy, who'd asked me at Christmas what I really did when I told her I was a systems analyst, like it was a fake job I'd made up. Uncle Paul, who forgot my name every single time we met and called me Rick or Rob or once, memorably, that guy Rebecca married. They found their names on the chart, smiled, walked to their tables inside. Tables with real chairs, cushioned seats, cloth napkins folded into swans or flowers or whatever shape meant you mattered. They didn't look at me. I was furniture to them, background, something that had always been there, but never quite in focus. I walked outside to find table 17. The patio was worse than I'd imagined. The concrete was cracked in places, weeds growing through the gaps, and the folding tables wobbled when I brushed against one. The chairs were the stacking kind from a rental company, metal frames with thin padding that would leave your ass numb after an hour. No tablecloths, no centerpieces, just bare laminate surfaces with a number written on a card in the center, held down by a rock so it wouldn't blow away. Table 17 was closest to the trash cans, just like Amanda or Amber had promised. Close enough that when the staff swung the lids open to dump scraped plates, I'd have a front row view. Close enough that when someone threw away their napkin and missed, I could reach over and pick it up without even standing. 3 other people were already sitting there, all looking as confused as I felt. A young guy in an ill-fitting suit, scrolling on his phone. A couple who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. The woman's arms crossed over her chest. The man staring into the middle distance like he was calculating how long they had to stay before it was socially acceptable to leave. I didn't sit down. I stood there with that envelope still in my pocket, feeling its weight differently now. And I looked back through those open barn doors at the party I wasn't invited to, the real party, the one where string lights glowed overhead and music was starting to play and people were finding their seats among family and friends and other people who counted. Rebecca appeared in the doorway then, and my breath caught the way it still sometimes did, even after 8 years. She was wearing blue, not the bridesmaid dress yet, but something that matched it, and her hair was pulled back in a style I didn't recognize, probably done by a professional this morning while I was at home trying to get coffee stains out of my shirt. She was laughing at something someone said, her head tilted back, and she looked happy. She looked like she belonged exactly where she was. Then she saw me standing on the patio next to the trash cans at a table with no cloth and cheap chairs, and something flickered across her face. Not surprise, and that was the thing I'd replay later in the dark, in the silence, and all the nights that came after. Not surprise, just a quick flash of something, guilt maybe, or pity, or embarrassment. And then it was gone, smoothed over by the same bright smile she'd given me that morning when I asked if she needed help with anything, and she'd said no. She had it covered, everything was under control. She didn't come over. Didn't walk out onto the patio to explain, to apologize, to acknowledge that this was fucked up. She just gave me a little wave, the kind you'd give someone you barely knew, someone who wasn't worth the walk. And then she turned back inside and was swallowed by the crowd. That's when I knew, really knew. Not suspected, not worried, but knew with the kind of certainty that settles in your bones and stays there. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't overflow seating because the barn was too small. This was intentional. This was where they thought I belonged. I pulled out my phone, ignored the 3 missed calls from my mother. She'd wanted to come. I told her it was family only, Sarah's family, which was apparently true in ways I hadn't understood, and opened my banking app. $25,000. It had seemed like the right amount when Rebecca and I discussed it. Her only sister getting married. We could afford it if we were careful, if we didn't take a vacation this year, if we waited on replacing the water heater, if I picked up those extra consulting hours on weekends. Rebecca had cried when I agreed to it, said I was the best husband, said Sarah would be so touched, said it would mean everything. I looked at that number on my phone screen, then at the trash cans, then back through the doors at the party happening without me. The envelope was thick in my pocket. Inside were 2 checks, split for tax purposes. Rebecca had been very careful about that. One for $15,000, one for $10,000, made out to Sarah and Greg, signed in my name and Rebecca's, with a card that said something about new beginnings and happiness and family. Rebecca had picked out the card. I hadn't even read what it said, just signed where she told me to sign. I thought about walking over to those trash cans and dropping it in. Thought about the symbolism of it, the poetry. Your brother-in-law's gift, right where you seated him, right where you think he belongs. But that felt too angry, too obvious. Too much like I cared in a way that would give them satisfaction. Instead, I did something simpler. I walked back inside. The barn had filled up while I was discovering my assigned place in the hierarchy. Every seat taken now, or nearly every seat, people fanning themselves with programs, adjusting dresses, checking phones one last time before the ceremony started. I wove through them, invisible the way I'd always been invisible to these people, just another body taking up space they wished was empty. I found Rebecca standing near the head table, talking to her mother. Her mother, Patricia, who'd never quite forgiven her daughter for marrying someone who grew up in an apartment instead of a house, who went to state school instead of private, whose parents were a retired postal worker and a nurse instead of a lawyer and a doctor. Patricia saw me approaching, and her smile went tight the way it always did, like she was bracing for impact. Rebecca, I said her name quietly, but she heard me, turned. Hey, did you find your seat okay? She said it brightly, too brightly. That same forced cheerfulness she used when she was trying to pretend everything was fine. I did, table 17 on the patio next to the trash cans. Her smile flickered. Patricia's smile didn't flicker. It sharpened. The patio's lovely, Patricia said. Very al fresco, very European. It's very intentional, I said, still looking at Rebecca. Isn't it? It's a big wedding, Rebecca said, and her voice had gone careful the way it did when we fought, when she was trying not to escalate. They had to get creative with the space. There are empty seats inside, and I counted 4 at your cousin Michael's table alone. Those are for people who haven't arrived yet. No, they're not. I said it simply, factually. I saw the seating chart. Those seats say reserved. They're not assigned to anyone. They're just being held, in case someone more important shows up, someone who isn't me. Patricia made a noise, something between a scoff and a laugh. This is Sarah's wedding day. This is not the time for what? For noticing I've been put outside with the garbage? I looked at her then, really looked at her, at this woman who'd spent 8 years making sure I knew I wasn't good enough for her daughter. For acknowledging that you people have been very clear about where I rank? That's not fair, Rebecca said, but she said it weakly, without conviction, and she wouldn't meet my eyes. You're right, it's not. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the envelope. It looked expensive, that thick cream-colored paper, the wax seal with their initials pressed into it. We'd special ordered the stationery. Rebecca had insisted. This is for Sarah and Greg. Wedding gift. From both of us. I held it out to Rebecca. She didn't take it. Just give it to them with the others, she said. There's a gift table by the entrance. No. I kept my hand extended, the envelope between us like a treaty neither of us wanted to sign. You give it to them, personally. From you. What are you? I'm leaving. The words came out clearer than I expected, calm, factual. I'm going home, and I'm taking my truck, so you'll need to find another ride. Maybe your mother can drive you, or Michael. Or literally anyone here who apparently matters more than I do. Rebecca's face did something complicated then, cycling through surprise and anger and something that might have been panic. You can't leave. The ceremony hasn't even started. Sure I can. Watch. I tucked the envelope back into my pocket. Actually, you know what? I'll hold on to this. Since I'm the one who earned it, I'm the one who worked those extra hours to make this happen. My money, my name on the checks, my decision what to do with it. That's our money, Rebecca said. And now her voice had an edge to it, sharp and familiar. We decided together. We decided together when you told me about the wedding, when you cried about wanting to be generous, when you said it would mean everything to your family. I took a breath and you didn't mention that family didn't include me. That part you kept quiet. Patricia stepped forward, her hand on Rebecca's arm like she was physically holding her daughter back. You're being dramatic. It's just a seat. It doesn't mean anything. Then I'm sure no one will mind that I'm not sitting in it. I started to turn, but Rebecca caught my wrist. Her fingers were cold. Please, don't do this. Don't ruin her day. I'm not ruining anything. I'm just not participating in my own humiliation. I looked down at her hand on my wrist, at the wedding ring she still wore, the one I'd saved for months to buy. Let go, Rebecca. We'll talk about this later, after the wedding. We'll figure it out. There's nothing to figure out. It's very simple. Your family put me outside with the trash because that's what they think of me. And you let them. You saw that seating chart, you approved it, and you didn't say a word. You didn't text me to warn me. You didn't call to apologize, you just let me walk into it. I didn't think you'd make such a big deal about it, she hissed. And there it was. The truth underneath all the bright smiles and forced cheerfulness. It's one meal, a few hours. Why can't you just be normal about this? Normal. The word hit me like a slap. Be normal. Be quiet. Be grateful they let you in the door at all. Even if the door leads to the patio with the folding chairs and the trash cans and all the other people who don't quite matter enough. I am being normal, I said. I'm being exactly as normal as you should expect from someone who just found out his wife's family thinks he's garbage. That's not, Rebecca started, but she didn't finish. Couldn't finish. Because she knew. She'd always known. That's why she'd told me to park in the back. Why she'd said I didn't need to come early. Why she'd been so careful to keep me separate. To make sure I arrived after the seating chart was already set. After it was too late to fix it. After I couldn't make a scene about it without making a scene about it. Music started playing inside the barn. The processional. Someone called Sarah's name, urgent and hushed. The wedding was starting. In 30 seconds, everyone would be looking at the aisle. At the bride day. At the beginning of something that was supposed to be beautiful. I pulled my wrist free from Rebecca's grip. Enjoy the wedding. I hope the peonies are everything you wanted. Then I turned and walked out, past the head table and the guest tables and the gift table, where our envelope should have gone but wouldn't. Past the seating chart with all those gold calligraphy names that didn't include mine. Past Amanda or Amber, who looked up from her clipboard with wide eyes as I strode past. Past the carefully arranged flowers and the string lights and all the beauty that had been constructed around the empty space where I was supposed to be. The parking lot was quiet. Everyone was inside now, finding their seats, settling in for the ceremony. I could hear the music even out here, something classical and elegant that probably cost a fortune. I unlocked my truck, charmingly rustic, embarrassingly old, and sat in the driver's seat with the door open and my feet still on the pavement. My phone buzzed. Rebecca. Please come back. We can talk about this after. Please don't do this to me. To her, not to us, to her. I didn't respond. Instead, I pulled out that envelope one more time and looked at it in the fading sunlight. $25,000. A year of weekends, a year of telling my mother we couldn't visit because I had to work, a year of Rebecca sighing when I came home late and fell asleep during whatever show she was watching because I was too tired to keep my eyes open. All for a sister-in-law who thought I belonged next to the trash cans. I opened the envelope, tore the wax seal that had seemed so important when we ordered it. Inside, the two checks, made out to Sarah Marie Thompson and Gregory James Harrison, signed with both our names in Rebecca's careful script. I'd signed where she pointed, signed without reading the amount because I trusted her, because she was my wife, because that's what you did when you were family. Except I wasn't family, not really. I was overflow seating. I was someone to be managed, to be hidden, to be kept separate from the people who mattered. I took out my phone and opened the camera app, photographed both checks, front and back, photographed the card with its message about new beginnings and happiness, photographed the envelope with its broken seal and their names in Rebecca's handwriting. Evidence. Documentation. The kind of proof you keep when you know a story is about to change and you need to be able to show what really happened. Then I started the truck and I drove home. The house was dark when I got there, empty in a way it had never quite felt before. I'd lived here for 6 years. We'd bought it together, Rebecca and me, though her parents had helped with the down payment, which they reminded me about at least once a month. It was a good house, a starter home in a decent neighborhood. Nothing fancy, but nothing to be ashamed of either. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, a yard big enough for the dog. We kept talking about getting, but never did. I walked through it in the dark, not turning on lights, just moving room to room like I was seeing it all for the first time. The kitchen where we'd eaten dinner last night, where Rebecca had been excited about the wedding, about seeing everyone, about how beautiful it was all going to be. The living room where we watched TV together when I wasn't working late, where she'd curl up next to me and put her cold feet on my legs and complain about her day at the real estate office where she worked part-time, mostly for something to do, mostly because her mother said a woman should have her own career even if she didn't need the money. The bedroom where we slept, where we'd stopped touching each other sometime in the last year, where the space between us in bed had grown wider than the bed itself. I sat on the edge of that bed in the dark, still wearing my good suit, and I thought about all the small moments that had led here. The Christmas 3 years ago, when her family had done a secret Santa exchange and somehow I wasn't included, hadn't even known it was happening until everyone started opening gifts and Rebecca said she'd just draw for both of us. The Thanksgiving. When her Uncle Paul had said grace and thanked God for family gathered around the table, and his eyes had moved over me like I was a blank spot on the wall. The 4th of July barbecue, and they'd all reminisced about family vacations I hadn't been on, family jokes I didn't understand, family history I'd never be part of, no matter how long I stayed married to Rebecca. Small things, easy to dismiss individually, easy to be told I was being too sensitive, too dramatic, that it didn't mean anything, that I was making something out of nothing. But it hadn't been nothing. It had been death by 1,000 cuts, each one small enough to dismiss, but together, accumulated over years, they'd bled me dry. My phone kept buzzing. Rebecca calling, Rebecca texting. Then, Sarah's maid of honor calling. Then, surprisingly, Patricia. I didn't answer any of them. I just sat in the dark and felt the weight of 8 years lifting off my shoulders like someone had cut a rope I didn't know I'd been carrying. Around 8 p.m., my phone rang again. Different number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Hello? Is this Adam? Male voice, young, uncertain. Yeah, who's this? It's Greg, the groom. Can we talk? I almost laughed. Sure. Congratulations, by the way. Thanks. He sounded miserable. Listen, I don't really know what happened, but Sarah's freaking out, Rebecca's freaking out. Everyone's asking where you are, and Rebecca won't tell anyone. And Sarah's saying you stole their wedding gift, and I didn't steal anything. That gift was from me, my money. I decided not to give it. Silence on the other end. Then, how much was it? Does it matter? Sarah's saying it was a lot. She's really upset. Good. The word came out harder than I meant it to. I'm glad she's upset. Maybe she'll think twice before she puts someone next to the trash cans at her wedding. What? Table 17 on the patio, next to the service station. That's where your bride seated me. Her sister's husband. The guy who worked extra hours for a year to be generous. Right next to the garbage. More silence. Longer this time. When Greg spoke again, his voice was different, quieter. I didn't know about that. The seating. Sarah and her mom and Rebecca did all that. I just I just showed up. Yeah, well, now you know. Congratulations again. I hope you got a lot of other generous gifts because you're not getting mine. I hung up before he could respond and let him figure out what to do with that information. Let him ask Sarah why her mom and her sister thought it was okay to humiliate family at her wedding. Let him start his marriage with that question hanging over it. My phone buzzed again immediately. Rebecca, we need to talk. Now. Where are you? I typed back, home, where I belong. Apparently not at your sister's wedding. I'm coming home. Stay there. I'm not going anywhere. But I got up anyway, went to the kitchen, pulled out the bottle of whiskey we kept for special occasions. Poured myself 2 fingers in a glass I didn't bother to rinse. Stood at the counter in the dark and drank and waited. She got home around 9:30. I heard the Uber pull up. Her mom must have driven her to get her car. Or maybe she'd gotten a ride from someone else. Someone who mattered. The front door opened, and she stood there in the doorway, backlit by the streetlight, still in that blue dress, hair starting to come undone from its professional style. Mascara smudged under her eyes. You left, she said. Like it was an accusation. Like I was the one who'd done something wrong. I did. Do you have any idea what you've done? What this looks like? Sarah's wedding is ruined. Sarah's wedding is fine. She got married, didn't she? Everyone saw her walk down the aisle in her expensive dress to her expensive reception in her expensive barn. The only thing that's different is I wasn't there to watch from the patio. You're being so selfish. She walked into the kitchen, flipped on the light. It was harsh, fluorescent, made her look tired and older than her 32 years. This was Sarah's day, her one special day. And you made it about you. I made it about me. I said it slowly, tasting each word. I made it about me by noticing I was seated outside next to the trash, by noticing there were empty seats inside, but I wasn't good enough for any of them, by noticing that you approved that seating chart and never thought to mention it to me. That's me making it about me? It was just a seat. She was yelling now, something she almost never did. It was just dinner. Why couldn't you just sit there for a few hours and be supportive? Because I'm not a dog, Rebecca. I'm your husband. Or I thought I was. Turns out I'm just someone you keep around when it's convenient and hide when it's not. That's not true, isn't it? I set down my glass. When was the last time you introduced me to someone new as my husband instead of just Adam? When was the last time your family asked me about my life, my job, anything that wasn't them pretending I was a slightly interesting houseplant? When was the last time you defended me when your mother made one of her comments about my truck or my job, or the fact that my parents didn't summer in the Hamptons? She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. They don't mean anything by it. That's just how they are. That's just how they are to people they don't respect, people they think are beneath them. And you let them. For 8 years, you let them. What was I supposed to do? Make a scene every time someone said something you didn't like? Alienate my entire family because you're too sensitive? There it was again. Too sensitive. Too dramatic. Making something out of nothing. I'm not too sensitive. I'm exactly sensitive enough. What I am is done. Her face changed then, went from angry to scared in the space of a heartbeat. What does that mean? It means I'm done being your family's entertainment. Done being the guy who's not good enough but is useful when you need someone to work extra hours to pay for your sister's wedding gift. Done being invisible. You're not invisible. I'm outside next to the trash cans, Rebecca. That's pretty fucking invisible. She stepped toward me, arms wrapped around herself like she was cold. Please, let's talk about this tomorrow. After we've both calmed down, after what? After you've had time to come up with a better excuse? After your mom's had time to explain to you how this is actually my fault? I shook my head. No, we're talking about it now. Because this isn't about one seat at one wedding. This is about 8 years of your family treating me like shit and you letting them. They don't treat you like shit. Your mother asked me what I really do for a living. At Christmas. After 8 years. Your uncle forgets my name every time he sees me. Your cousin Michael has never spoken to me directly, just talks around me like I'm not there. And your sister put me next to the trash cans at her wedding while you smiled and waved and did nothing. Rebecca's face crumpled. Not crying yet, but close. What do you want me to say? That they're not perfect? Fine, they're not perfect. But they're my family. And I'm your husband, supposed to be your partner, supposed to matter at least as much as them. But I don't, do I? I've never mattered as much as keeping the peace with them, as making sure Patricia approves, as being the good daughter who married down but manages it gracefully. That's not fair. You keep saying that. What's not fair? Like fairness has anything to do with it. I picked up my glass, then set it back down without drinking. You know what's not fair? I spent a year working extra hours to give your sister $25,000 for her wedding. A wedding where I got seated outside. That's not fair. I skipped visiting my mother because I'm too busy working to pay for your lifestyle, your family's expectations, your sister's gift. That's not fair. I pretend not to notice every time your family makes it clear I don't belong because making a fuss would embarrass you. That's not fair. You're acting like I forced you to do any of that. You didn't force me. I did it because I loved you, because I thought we were building something together, because I thought being family meant something. I looked at her then, really looked at this woman I'd shared a bed with for 8 years and apparently never really known. But we're not building anything together. You're maintaining your position in your family, and I'm the tool you use to do it. The respectable husband, the guy with a steady job who works hard and doesn't complain, useful, but not family. Never family. She was crying now, mascara running in black streaks down her cheeks. I love you. You know I love you. Do you? Because love looks like standing up for someone. Love looks like telling your mother that her comments aren't okay. Love looks like refusing to let your sister seat your husband next to the trash cans at her wedding. You didn't do any of that. I'm caught in the middle. No. You chose a side. You chose them. You've been choosing them for 8 years, and I've been pretending not to notice because it was easier than dealing with the truth. What truth? That you're ashamed of me. That you wish I was someone else. Someone who went to the right schools and knew the right people, and whose parents belonged to country clubs. Someone who would fit in at your family's table instead of getting exiled to the patio. I'm not ashamed of you. But she said it too quickly, too defensively, and we both heard the lie in it. I nodded. Okay, so prove it. Call your mother right now. Tell her what she did was wrong. Tell her she humiliated me at your sister's wedding, and it's not okay. Tell her she needs to apologize. Rebecca stared at me, said nothing. That's what I thought. I picked up my glass, drained it, set it in the sink. I'm sleeping in the guest room. We'll figure out the rest tomorrow. The rest of what? But I was already walking away, down the hall to the bedroom that had never been used because we were supposed to be filling it with kids someday. Kids that now would never exist because I wasn't going to bring children into a family that thought their father was garbage. I closed the door and locked it and sat on the bed in the dark, and I listened to Rebecca crying in the kitchen, and I felt nothing at all. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls and 34 text messages, most from Rebecca, several from Sarah, one from Patricia, 2 from numbers I didn't recognize. I read through them slowly, drinking coffee that tasted like cardboard, watching the sun come up through windows that looked out on a yard I'd mowed every weekend for 6 years. Sarah's messages were the most illuminating. You stole our wedding gift. Everyone's asking where you went. Rebecca won't stop crying, and it's your fault. Greg says you're making this about something that wasn't even a big deal. We needed that money for our honeymoon. You're ruining everything out of spite. I can't believe Rebecca married someone so petty. That last one made me laugh. Petty. I was petty for noticing I'd been put outside with the trash. Petty for declining to give $25,000 to someone who thought I was disposable. Rebecca's messages were different. They cycled through anger and pleading and confusion, sometimes all in the same message. We need to talk. Please answer. My family's asking questions. Sarah's threatening to sue you for the gift. This is so fucked up. I don't understand why you're doing this. Please come home. Wait, you are home. I can see your truck. Can we please just talk like adults? The ones from Patricia were short and cold. This behavior is unacceptable. You will return that gift money immediately. I always knew you weren't good enough for Rebecca. That last one I screenshotted. Evidence. For later. I showered, dressed in jeans and a t-shirt instead of the suit I'd worn yesterday, made myself breakfast that I didn't eat. Around 9, Rebecca knocked on the guest room door. Adam, can we talk? Go ahead, talk. Can you open the door? No. Silence, then. Please, I barely slept. I need to talk to you. So talk. Door doesn't need to be open for that. I heard her slide down to sit on the floor, her back against the door. Her voice came through muffled and tired. I talked to Sarah and my mom about the seating. And? And they said it wasn't personal. It was just logistics. They had to fit everyone in and, Rebecca, stop. What? Stop lying. Stop making excuses for them. Just stop. I'm not lying. Yes, you are. Or they're lying to you and you're choosing to believe them. Either way, it's bullshit. I got up, stood near the door so she could hear me clearly. There were empty seats inside. I saw them, you saw them. The seating wasn't about logistics. It was about hierarchy, about making sure everyone knew where they ranked. And I ranked below the trash can. That's not what it was. Then what was it? Explain it to me. Make it make sense. Why was I outside while there were empty reserved seats inside? Why was I next to the service station while your cousin, who you haven't seen in 5 years, got a seat at the family table? Why was I given a folding chair on a concrete patio while people who RSVP'd late got real seats inside? She didn't answer. It's because I don't matter to them. And you know that. You've always known that. That's why you didn't warn me. That's why you let it happen. Because somewhere deep down, you agree with them. That's not true. Then call your mother right now. Put her on speaker. Tell her she was wrong. Tell her she humiliated me and it's not okay. Do it right now and I'll believe you. More silence. Longer this time, then. I can't do that. Why not? Because it's complicated. Because she's my mother. Because Sarah just got married and making a big thing about the seating would what? Upset them? Make you look bad? Force them to acknowledge they treated me like garbage? I leaned my forehead against the door. You can't do it because then you'd have to admit what they did was wrong. And if you admit that, you'd have to admit you let it happen, that you were complicit. I'm not complicit. You approved that seating chart. I didn't approve it. Sarah and my mom did the seating, and you saw it multiple times. You walked past it all morning. You knew where I was sitting, and you didn't say anything. That's complicit. I heard her start to cry again, that same hitching breath from last night. Part of me wanted to open the door, to comfort her, to make this easier. But that part was smaller now, quieter. Drowned out by the part that remembered sitting on that concrete patio next to the trash cans while my wife waved at me from the doorway and then turned away. I want you to do something for me, I said. What? Her voice was small, hopeful. I want you to call your sister. Tell her I'm keeping the gift money. All of it. Tell her it's my money, earned by my labor, and I get to decide who deserves it. Tell her that maybe if she'd seated me inside like family, I would have given it to her. But she didn't, so I won't. I can't tell her that. Then I will. Adam, please. And I want you to tell your mother that her comments about my truck and my job and my family are not okay. That they stop now. That if she can't treat me with basic respect, she doesn't get to see you. No more Sunday dinners, no more holidays, and she can have her perfect family without the husband who isn't good enough. You're asking me to choose. I'm asking you to be my wife, to act like we're partners, to stand up for me the way I've stood up for you for 8 years. When have you stood up for me? The question caught me off guard. What? When have you stood up for me? You keep saying you've been doing all this for me, but when? When have you actually... She stopped, started again. You work all the time. Extra hours, consulting projects. You're always at your computer or on your phone. You never want to go out with my friends. You barely talk to my family. I wonder why. And now you're acting like you've been this perfect husband, sacrificing everything, but you haven't. You've just been working. That's not the same thing. I stood there with my hand on the doorknob, feeling something shift inside me, something final. You're right. Working isn't the same thing as standing up for you, except all that work I was doing, those extra hours, that was so we could afford the life you wanted, the house you wanted, the vacations you wanted, the $25,000 gift you wanted to give your sister. I wasn't working for fun. I was working for us. I never asked you to work that much. You didn't have to ask. Your expectations did the asking for you. Your family's expectation. Your lifestyle. The way you looked at your friends' houses and their cars and their vacations and then looked at ours inside. I opened the door. She was sitting on the floor, back against the wall, makeup smudged, dress wrinkled. She looked up at me with red eyes. I worked those hours because I thought that's what being a good husband meant. Providing. Making sure you had what you needed. Making sure we could be generous when your family needed something. Turns out I was wrong. Being a good husband means knowing your place. Sitting outside next to the trash when you're told. Smiling when your wife's family treats you like you don't exist, not making a fuss. That's not what I think, isn't it? Because that's what your silence says. That's what your inability to call your mother and tell her she was wrong says. That's what sitting outside my door asking me to just get over it says. She struggled to her feet unsteady. What do you want from me? What would be enough? Tell me and I'll do it. I want you to be angry on my behalf. I want you to be furious that your family treated me that way. I want you to be so mad that you can't even look at your mother without demanding an apology. I want you to feel what I felt sitting at that table next to the trash cans, watching everyone else be family while I was something else, something less. I am angry. At me. You're angry at me for leaving, for making a scene, for not giving them the money. You're not angry at them for what they did. You're angry at me for responding to it. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. I don't know how to fix this. You can't. Not by yourself. I walked past her, toward the kitchen. She followed. You can't fix it because it's not just about yesterday. It's about 8 years of small humiliations that you either didn't notice or didn't care about. It's about me being an accessory in your life instead of a partner, and you can't fix that overnight. So what, we're just done? 8 years and one bad seating arrangement, and you're ready to throw it all away? I turned to look at her. It wasn't one bad seating arrangement. It was the final one. The one that made it impossible to pretend anymore. The one that showed me exactly how little I matter to you and your family. You matter to me. Then prove it. Call your mother right now. Tell her what she did was wrong. Rebecca pulled out her phone, held it, stared at it like it was a bomb that might go off. Then she put it away. I can't. Not right now. Not when everyone's still upset about yesterday. There it is. I nodded. Everyone's upset. Your mom's upset. Sarah's upset. Your family's upset. But I don't count in everyone, do I? I'm just the guy causing the upset, not the guy who has a right to be upset. That's not what I meant. It's exactly what you meant. It's what you've always meant. I poured myself more coffee, offered her none. I'm going to make this simple for you. I'll stay at a hotel for a few days. Give us both space to think. You should think about what you really want. If you want a marriage where we're actually partners, where I'm actually family, then you need to figure out how to make that happen. If you want to keep things the way they've been, where I'm useful but invisible, where your family comes first and I come somewhere after that, then we should just end this now. You're saying I have to choose between you and my family. I'm saying you have to choose to treat me like I matter as much as they do. That's not the same thing. I set down my mug. I'm going to pack a bag. I'll text you the hotel address. If you want to talk, actually talk, not just make excuses and ask me to get over it, then we can meet somewhere neutral. If you want to keep defending them, keep explaining why it wasn't really that bad, keep making this my fault, then we're done. I walked back to the bedroom. Our bedroom, not the guest room. And I started packing. Underwear, socks, jeans, shirts, the basics. Rebecca stood in the doorway watching me, crying quietly, not saying anything. When I was done, I picked up my bag and walked past her. At the front door, I stopped, turned back. For what it's worth, I did love you. I loved you enough to work myself half to death trying to be good enough for your family. I loved you enough to swallow my pride every time they made it clear I wasn't. I loved you enough to give your sister $25,000 that I earned for a wedding I wasn't really invited to. That's how much I loved you. Adam, but I love myself too. And I'm done sacrificing my self-respect for people who don't respect me, including you. Then I walked out, and I didn't look back. The hotel was one of those extended stay places near the highway, clean and anonymous, and exactly what I needed. I checked in for a week, carried my bag up to a room that looked like every other hotel room I'd ever seen, and I sat on the bed, and I breathed for what felt like the first time in years. My phone kept buzzing. Rebecca, Sarah, Patricia, Greg. Apparently Sarah had him calling now. A number I didn't recognize that left a voicemail I didn't listen to. Everyone wanting something, everyone demanding something, everyone angry that I disrupted their carefully arranged hierarchy by having the audacity to notice it existed. I turned off my phone. For 3 days, I existed in silence. I went to work, Told my boss I was dealing with a family emergency, which was true in its way. I ate food that tasted like nothing. I slept in a bed that wasn't mine and woke up to walls that weren't mine and felt more at home than I had in years. On the fourth day, I turned my phone back on. 147 messages, 63 missed calls, 12 voicemails. I didn't read them, didn't listen. Instead, I opened my banking app and looked at the account where that $25,000 still sat, untouched. I thought about what to do with it. I could donate it, could give it to my mother, who'd actually earned a place in my life by treating me like I mattered, could spend it on myself, on something frivolous and expensive as a final fuck you to Sarah and her perfect wedding. Instead, I transferred it to a separate account, a new account, one that only had my name on it. Money for whatever came next. Money I'd earned. Money that represented a year of my life I'd never get back, but that I could at least redirect towards something that might actually matter. Then I called a lawyer. His name was Marcus Chen, and he specialized in divorce. I'd found him online, read reviews that said he was fair but firm, that he didn't fuck around, that he got results. His office was downtown, all dark wood and leather chairs and diplomas on the wall that probably cost more than my truck. Tell me what happened, he said, after we'd shaken hands and I'd sat down in one of those leather chairs. So I told him. All of it. The wedding, the seating chart, the 8 years of small cuts that had led to this moment. The money I'd saved for the gift I didn't give. The wife who couldn't bring herself to call her mother and say she was wrong. He listened without interrupting, taking notes on a yellow legal pad, his face neutral. When I finished, he set down his pen and looked at me. Do you want a divorce? I don't know, maybe, probably. That's not a legal answer. I want my wife to act like she's my wife, like I'm her partner, like I matter as much as her family does. If she can't do that, then yes, I want a divorce. Has she been unfaithful? Not physically, but emotionally, yeah. She's been married to her family the whole time. I've just been the guy who pays the bills and shows up when required. Marcus nodded. How long have you been married? 8 years, no kids. House is jointly owned, but her parents helped with the down payment. I've been the primary earner the whole time. She works part-time in real estate, mostly for something to do. I've got documentation of the accounts, the earnings, everything. Good. Keep documenting. Every interaction with her and her family, every text, every call, every conversation. If this goes to divorce, we want a clear paper trail. It feels petty. It's protection. You'd be surprised how quickly family money can make things complicated. He flipped through his notes. This gift you withheld? Is it in joint accounts? It was. I moved it to a separate account, just my name. Good. That's your separate property earned by your labor. The fact that you were planning to give it as a gift doesn't change that it's yours to dispose of as you see fit. He looked up at me. Though I assume her family will argue otherwise. Let them argue. They might sue. For what? The gift was never given. The money's mine. They can't sue me for not being generous. Marcus smiled, the first real expression I'd seen from him. I like you. You've got a spine. We'll work with that. I left his office with a retainer paid and a folder full of documents to fill out. Steps to take, things to document. A roadmap for how to end a marriage if it came to that. Walking to my truck, I felt lighter than I had in days. Like I'd finally stopped falling and had found ground to stand on. My phone rang. Rebecca. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Hello? You called a divorce lawyer. Her voice was flat, shocked. How did you... I saw the charge on our credit card. Marcus Chen, divorce attorney. You used our joint card to pay for a divorce lawyer. Shit, I forgot about that. I'll reimburse the account. Is that where we are? You're just done? You're not even going to try? I've been trying for 8 years. I'm tired. What am I supposed to tell people? There it was, not how do we fix this, not what can I do, but what am I supposed to tell people? Because that was what mattered, the image, the story, what people would think. Tell them whatever you want. Tell them I'm an asshole who couldn't take a joke. Tell them I overreacted to a seating arrangement. Tell them I left you for no reason. I don't care anymore. You don't care. She said it like an accusation. You don't care about our marriage, about our life together, about anything we built. What did we build, Rebecca? Really? What did we build together that wasn't actually just me supporting you while you maintained your relationship with a family that thinks I'm garbage? That's not fair. You keep saying that, but you never say I'm wrong. Silence, long and heavy and full of all the things we'd never said to each other in 8 years. I talked to my mom, she finally said, and she said the seating wasn't personal. It was just how things worked out. She said, if you're going to be this sensitive about everything, maybe we're not compatible. I laughed. Couldn't help it. Your mother said that. The woman who just proved she thinks I belong next to the trash cans said we're not compatible because I'm too sensitive to accept being treated like trash. She didn't mean it like that. How did she mean it? She just meant, she meant that family is complicated, that there's history and dynamics you don't understand, that you can't expect everything to revolve around you. I don't expect everything to revolve around me. I expect basic fucking respect. I expect to be seated inside at my sister-in-law's wedding. I expect my wife to defend me when her family treats me like shit. Those aren't unreasonable expectations. You're being so black and white about this. So all or nothing, because it is all or nothing. Either I'm family or I'm not. Either you're my wife or you're your mother's daughter. Either we're partners or I'm an accessory. There's no middle ground here. I can't just cut off my family. I'm not asking you to cut them off. I'm asking you to tell them they were wrong. I'm asking you to demand an apology. I'm asking you to set boundaries that say treating your husband like garbage is not okay. That's not cutting them off. That's being an adult. More silence, then. Can you come home? Can we talk about this in person? Are you going to tell me I'm overreacting? Are you going to make excuses for them? Are you going to ask me to just get over it? I don't know. I'm confused. I don't know what you want from me. I want you to be angry on my behalf. I want you to be so furious about what they did that you can't sleep. I want you to feel what I felt. Can you do that? Silence. That's what I thought. I took a breath. I'll be at the hotel for the rest of the week. You should think about what you really want. If you want to save this marriage, you need to show me you're willing to put me first. Not first all the time, but at least sometimes. At least when your family is clearly wrong. If you can't do that, then we're done. Adam, I hung up. Sat in my truck in the parking lot of a lawyer's office and felt nothing except a kind of distant relief. Like I'd finally stopped pretending. Like I'd finally told the truth we'd both been avoiding for years. That night, I got a text from Greg. Sarah told me about the seating. I didn't know. She and her mom did all that without asking me. I'm sorry. That was fucked up. I stared at that text for a long time. An apology from the groom, not from the bride, not from my wife, not from my mother-in-law, from the guy who'd married into this mess and apparently had clearer sight than anyone actually in the family. I typed back, thanks for saying that. Congrats again on the wedding. His reply came fast. Thanks, for what it's worth, Sarah's really upset. Not about the money, though she is upset about that, but about you leaving. She said she didn't think you'd actually go. She thought you'd just sit there and take it. She was wrong. Yeah, I'm learning that her family has some issues with how they treat people. My brother came to the wedding too. He's a teacher. They made some comments about his job that were pretty shitty. He just laughed it off, but I could tell it bothered him. Sorry to hear that. Don't be sorry. I'm glad you left. Someone needed to make a point. Maybe now Sarah and her mom will think twice before they pull this shit again. I didn't respond to that. What was there to say? That I doubted they'd learn anything? That people like Patricia and Sarah didn't learn? They just found new ways to justify their behavior? But it was nice to know I wasn't crazy. That someone else saw it too. 2 more days passed. I worked, ate, slept, existed. Rebecca texted occasionally, "Can we talk? I miss you. Please come home." But I didn't respond. What was there to say until she did what I'd asked her to do? On day 6, my phone rang. Patricia. I almost didn't answer. Almost let it go to voicemail, but something made me pick up. Curiosity, maybe. Or the desire to hear what excuse she'd come up with. Hello? Adam, we need to discuss this situation like adults. Her voice was clipped, professional, the tone she probably used with difficult clients at her law firm. I'm listening. This has gone on long enough. You've made your point. You were upset about the seating. You left the wedding. You've punished everyone enough. Now it's time to come home, apologize to Rebecca and Sarah, and move forward. I actually had to pull the phone away from my ear and look at it to make sure I'd heard correctly. Apologize. Yes, apologize. Your behavior was childish and dramatic. You ruined Sarah's wedding day, you've upset Rebecca terribly, and you've made my entire family the subject of gossip. The least you can do is apologize and try to make amends. Let me make sure I understand. You want me to apologize for leaving a wedding where I was seated outside next to the trash cans? It wasn't next to the trash cans. It was next to the service station, which held trash cans. I could smell them by the end of the night. You didn't stay until the end of the night because I left, because I wasn't going to sit there and be humiliated. Oh, don't be so dramatic. It was just a seat. If you're so insecure about your place in this family that you can't handle one less than ideal seat, my place in this family. I said it slowly. What is my place in this family, Patricia? You're Rebecca's husband. Am I? Because Rebecca's husband should be seated inside with family. Rebecca's husband should be treated with basic respect. Rebecca's husband shouldn't be an afterthought who gets the worst seat in the house because nobody thought he mattered enough to care. You're being incredibly self-centered about this. This wasn't about you. This was Sarah's day. And Sarah decided my place on her day was next to the garbage. What does that tell you about how she sees me? About how your whole family sees me? It tells me you're too sensitive and too proud for your own good. It tells me you can't see past your own ego to support your wife's family. Here's what I can see. I can see that for 8 years, you've made little comments about my job, my truck, my family, my life. I can see that you've treated me like I'm not good enough for your daughter. I can see that you think I should be grateful you let me marry into your family at all. And I can see that you orchestrated that seating chart specifically to put me in my place. To remind me that I'm not really family, that I'm just the guy who pays Rebecca's bills and shows up when required. That's not true. Then why did you put me outside? Silence. Answer the question, Patricia. If the seating wasn't personal, if it wasn't about me, then why was I specifically given the worst seat at the wedding? Why were there empty reserved seats inside while I was on the patio? Why did every single one of Rebecca's relatives get seats inside while I got a folding chair next to the trash? The barn had limited capacity. Bullshit. I counted the seats. There were at least 20 empty chairs inside at various tables, reserved for people who never showed up. You had space. You chose to put me outside. More silence. Longer this time. I want you to admit it, I said. I want you to say out loud that you put me outside because you don't think I'm good enough for your daughter. Because you've never thought I was good enough. Because you wanted to make sure I knew my place. This conversation is pointless. Admit it. I don't have to admit anything to you. Then we're done. You're done. I don't want to see you. I don't want to talk to you. If Rebecca and I manage to work this out, you're not part of our life anymore. No Sunday dinners, no holidays, no family gatherings. You treated me like garbage, so you don't get access to me anymore. You can't do that. Watch me. Rebecca won't allow it. I'm her mother, and I'm her husband. If she wants to stay married to me, she'll have to choose. And honestly, I don't think she'll choose me. I think she'll choose you, because she always has. But at least then it'll be clear. At least then I'll know where I stand. I hung up before she could respond. Sat on the hotel bed, breathing hard, adrenaline surging through me like I'd just run a marathon. My phone rang again immediately. Patricia, I declined the call, rang again, declined again. Then a text. You're making a terrible mistake. Rebecca deserves better than this. I typed back, Rebecca deserves a husband who's treated like family. If you can't do that, then yeah, she deserves better. She deserves someone who your family will actually respect. That's not me. It'll never be me. You've made that very clear. No response. An hour later, Rebecca called. I answered. What did you say to my mother? She was crying again, but this time there was anger underneath it. She called me sobbing. She said you told her she's not welcome in our life anymore. She said you called her a liar. She said everything I said to your mother was true. And yes, I told her she's not welcome in our life if we stay married. Because she's the one who orchestrated that seating chart. She's the one who's been making comments about me for 8 years. She's the one who thinks I'm not good enough for you. And I'm done pretending that's okay. You can't just cut my mother out of my life. I'm not cutting her out of your life. I'm cutting her out of mine. Big difference. You can see her whenever you want. You can have Sunday dinners and holidays and all the family bonding time your heart desires. Just don't expect me to be there. Don't expect me to sit there and smile while she treats me like shit. She doesn't treat you like shit. She put me next to the trash cans. I was yelling. I never yelled. Rebecca went quiet. She put me next to the trash cans, I said again. quieter now, but no less intense. She looked at that seating chart, saw my name, and decided the best place for your husband was outside on a concrete patio with folding chairs and no decorations, right next to where the staff would be dumping garbage all night. And you let her. You approved it. You walked past that seating chart all morning, and you never thought to call me and warn me. You never thought to say, "Hey, Adam, this is fucked up. Let me fix it." You just let it happen. I didn't know it would hurt you this much. How could you not know? How could you not know that being treated like garbage would hurt? What kind of person thinks their partner would be okay with that? I thought you'd understand it was just logistics. It wasn't logistics. It was a statement. It was your family telling me loud and clear that I don't belong, that I'm not good enough, that I'm an outsider who should be grateful for whatever scraps of inclusion you throw my way. She was crying harder now, that ugly crying where you can barely breathe. Part of me wanted to comfort her. Part of me remembered 8 years of being her partner, of caring about her feelings, of wanting to make things better. But that part was getting smaller every day, shrinking under the weight of what I now understood about our marriage. "I don't know how to fix this," she said between sobs. "I don't know what you want me to do. I want you to be angry. I want you to call your mother and tell her she was wrong. I want you to call your sister and tell her she was wrong. I want you to set boundaries that say treating your husband like garbage is not acceptable. I want you to choose me, just once. Choose me over them." "I do choose you." "No, you say you choose me. But when it matters, when there's an actual conflict, you choose them. You choose keeping the peace with them over standing up for me. You've done it for 8 years. You're doing it right now." "I'm not." "You are. You're crying and asking me how to fix this. But you haven't called your mother and told her she was wrong. You haven't called Sarah and told her she was wrong. You're trying to find a way to make everyone happy without actually confronting them. That's choosing them." "What if I can't?" Her voice was small, broken. "What if I can't do what you're asking? What if I can't tell my mother she was wrong?" And there it was. The truth we'd been dancing around for days. "Then we're done," I said. "Because I can't stay married to someone who values her mother's approval more than her husband's dignity. I can't stay married to someone who'll let me be humiliated just to keep the peace. I deserve better than that. I love you. Love isn't enough. Love without respect is just dependence. And I don't want to be depended on anymore. I want to be valued. I want to matter. You do matter. Then prove it. Call your mother, right now. Put her on speaker. Tell her she was wrong." Silence. Long and terrible and full of the answer I already knew. "I can't," she whispered. "I'm sorry, I can't." "Then I guess that's our answer." I felt empty saying it. Not sad, not angry, just empty. Like something inside me had finally gone quiet after years of noise. "I'll call Marcus in the morning. We'll start the divorce process. You can stay in the house until we figure out how to split things. I'll find an apartment." "Please don't do this." "I'm not doing this. This is already done. It's been done for a long time. We just didn't want to admit it." "Adam." "Goodbye, Rebecca." I hung up and I turned off my phone, and I lay on that hotel bed in the dark, and I didn't cry. I just breathed in and out, until eventually I fell asleep and dreamed of nothing at all. The next morning, I called Marcus. "I want to file for divorce." "You're sure?" "I'm sure." "Okay, come by the office this afternoon. We'll start the paperwork." I spent the day organizing my life, called a few apartment complexes, set up viewings, called my boss, explained I was going through a divorce, asked if I could work from home more often while I got things sorted, called my mother, who I'd been avoiding because I knew she'd ask questions I didn't want to answer. "Adam, honey, what's wrong?" So I told her, all of it, the wedding, the seating, the 8 years of small cuts, the wife who couldn't choose me over her family. She listened the way good mothers do, without interrupting, without judging, just being present while I finally said out loud all the things I'd been keeping quiet. "I'm sorry, baby," she said when I finished. "I always worried about that, about whether you felt like you belonged in that family. You knew. A mother knows. I saw how they treated you at holidays, how they talked about your job like it wasn't real work, how they'd plan things without including you. I saw how small you'd get around them, like you were trying to take up less space. Why didn't you say anything? Would you have listened? You loved Rebecca. You wanted it to work. And I thought maybe I was wrong. Maybe it was just me being overprotective, but I wasn't wrong, was I?" "No, you weren't wrong." "What are you going to do? Divorce, move on. Try to remember who I was before I spent 8 years trying to be good enough for people who were never going to accept me. You were always good enough, baby. They were the ones who weren't good enough for you. We talked for another hour. She told me I could stay with her if I needed to, that my old room was still there, that she'd make my favorite meals and we could watch bad TV together like we used to when I was a kid. I thanked her, but said I needed my own space. Needed to figure out who I was without Rebecca, without her family, without the weight of trying to belong. That afternoon, I went to Marcus's office. We filed the paperwork. Irreconcilable differences. Division of assets. No children involved, thank God. It would take a few months to finalize, but the machine was in motion now. No stopping it. You're doing the right thing, Marcus said as I signed the papers. Doesn't feel like it. It rarely does, but sometimes the right thing and the thing that feels good aren't the same thing. I moved out that weekend. Found a studio apartment near downtown, nothing fancy, but clean and mine. Rebecca wasn't home when I came to get my stuff. She'd left for her mother's, probably, or Sarah's, somewhere she could cry and be comforted and be told I was the villain in this story. I packed my clothes, my books, my computer, the few things that were mine and not ours. Left my key on the kitchen counter with a note that said only, I'll be in touch through Marcus about the house and accounts. I didn't take any furniture. Didn't take any of the wedding gifts or the photos from the walls or any of the accumulated debris of 8 years of marriage. I just took what I'd brought into the marriage and left everything else behind. It felt right. It felt like I was finally traveling light. The apartment was empty when I moved in, just blank walls and carpet that had seen better days and a window that looked out on an alley. I set up my computer on the floor, plugged in my phone, ordered pizza from a place I'd never tried before. Sat cross-legged, eating mediocre pepperoni and thinking about how strange it was that this felt more like home than the house I'd lived in for 6 years. My phone buzzed. Rebecca. Did you really move out without even saying goodbye? I typed back. What was there to say? That you love me. That this meant something. That 8 years deserves more than a note on the counter. 8 years deserves a wife who stands up for her husband. I didn't get that. So yeah, this is what 8 years gets. A note on the counter and a divorce lawyer. I hate you right now. That's fair. I'm not very fond of you either. She didn't respond to that. I finished my pizza and I unpacked my boxes and I started building a life that didn't include her. The divorce took 4 months to finalize. 4 months of lawyers and paperwork and negotiations over who got what. The house went to Rebecca. Her parents had paid half the down payment, and I didn't want to fight about it. She could have the house and all the memories and all the furniture that probably reminded her of me. I didn't want any of it. The accounts were split down the middle except for that $25,000 I'd moved to my separate account. Patricia's lawyers tried to argue it was community property since I'd earned it during the marriage. Marcus argued back that it was a gift that was never given, that the money had always remained mine then, that I had every right to keep it. The judge agreed on. I got to keep the money I'd earned for a wedding gift to a woman who'd seated me next to the trash. I never spoke to Rebecca again after that first week. Everything went through Marcus. Every question, every negotiation, every detail of dismantling 8 years of shared life. She tried to call a few times, sent texts saying we should talk, we should work this out. Divorce was too extreme. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. Sarah sent me an email 3 months into the divorce process. Subject line, you're a coward. I almost deleted it without reading, but curiosity won out. You're a coward for leaving my wedding. You're a coward for taking back your gift. You're a coward for divorcing my sister instead of being an adult and working through your issues. You're a coward for making everything about you when it was supposed to be my day. I hope you're happy with yourself. I hope you enjoy being alone, because that's what people like you deserve. I forwarded it to Marcus without comment. He replied, document everything. This kind of harassment helps our case. I didn't respond to Sarah. What would I say? That she'd proven my point? That her email was exactly the kind of behavior that had made me leave in the first place? That people who thought I belonged next to the trash didn't get to call me a coward for refusing to sit there? I just archived it and moved on. The divorce was finalized on a Tuesday in March. I didn't go to the courthouse. Marcus handled everything. He called me afterward to say it was done. The marriage was legally dissolved. I was officially single again. How do you feel? He asked. Lighter, I said. And it was true. I felt lighter than I had in years, like I'd been carrying a weight I hadn't realized was there until it was gone. That night, I went to dinner by myself at a nice restaurant downtown. Spent some of that $25,000 on a steak and a good bottle of wine and dessert. Sat alone at a table by the window and watched people walk past and felt completely content. My phone buzzed halfway through dinner. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Hello, Adam, it's Greg. Greg, hi. Congratulations on surviving your first few months of marriage. He laughed, but it sounded tired. Thanks. That's actually why I'm calling. I wanted to tell you something and to apologize. You don't need to apologize. You didn't do anything. That's the thing, I did. I went along with it. The seating, the way they talked about you, all of it. I should have said something. I should have stood up for you. But I didn't because I was trying to keep Sarah happy and it was easier to just go along with whatever her family wanted. Sounds familiar. Yeah, I'm starting to realize that. He paused. Sarah and I are in counseling. Turns out when you marry into a family like hers, you inherit all their dysfunction, and they've got a lot of it. Good luck with that. Thanks, I think we're going to need it. Another pause. For what it's worth, I'm glad you left. I wish I'd had the balls to do what you did, to just say fuck this and walk out. Maybe if I had, maybe if someone had made a stand earlier, things would be different. It's not too late, isn't it? Not if you start now. Set boundaries. Tell Sarah that the way her family treats people isn't okay. Tell her you won't participate in it. She'll either respect that or she won't. But at least you'll know. You make it sound easy. It's not easy. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. But it was worth it. I'd rather be alone and respected than partnered and invisible. We talked for a few more minutes, then said goodbye. I don't know if he took my advice. I don't know if he set boundaries or if he ended up like me, divorced and starting over. But I hoped he did. I hoped he found his backbone before he wasted 8 years trying to be good enough for people who'd never think he was. I finished my dinner and walked back to my apartment through streets lit by streetlights and neon signs. The city felt different now, full of possibility instead of obligation. I could go anywhere, do anything, be anyone. I wasn't tied down by a wife who couldn't choose me or a family who thought I was disposable. I was just me. Just Adam. For the first time in 8 years, that felt like enough. 6 months after the divorce, I ran into Rebecca at a coffee shop downtown. She looked different, thinner, tired, her hair cut shorter than she used to wear it. She saw me and froze, her hand on the door, like she was deciding whether to come in or leave. I waved her in, figured we were adults, figured enough time had passed. She ordered her coffee, still a vanilla latte with extra foam. Some things never changed, and sat down at my table without asking if it was okay. I didn't tell her to leave. How are you? She asked. Good, you? I've been better. She wrapped her hands around her cup like she was cold. I heard you got a promotion. I did. Senior systems analyst. More money, more responsibility, and less time to work extra hours for other people's wedding gifts. She flinched. You're still angry. I'm not angry, I'm just being honest. It sounds like anger. Maybe. Maybe I'm still working through it, but mostly I'm just done. I did my anger. Now I'm just moving on. She nodded, looked down at her coffee. I think about that night a lot, the wedding, the way everything fell apart. It didn't fall apart that night. It had been falling apart for years. That night it just became impossible to ignore. I should have stood up for you. Yeah, you should have. I was scared of upsetting my mom, of making Sarah's wedding about something else, of being the bad daughter. I was scared of all the wrong things. And now? Now I'm divorced and my family asks me every week when I'm going to start dating again because being single at 33 is apparently a failure. Now I realize that the person I should have been scared of losing was you, not them. I didn't know what to say to that. It felt true and too late at the same time. I'm sorry, she said. I know it doesn't change anything. I know we're done, but I needed to say it. I'm sorry I let them treat you that way. I'm sorry I didn't choose you. I'm sorry I was so worried about being the perfect daughter that I forgot how to be a good wife. I appreciate that. Do you, or are you just saying that to be polite? Both, maybe. I took a sip of my coffee. I do appreciate the apology. It's more than I expected, but it doesn't change anything. It doesn't change 8 years of me being invisible. It doesn't change that you chose them over me every single time it mattered. It doesn't change that I'm happier now without you than I ever was with you." She nodded, tears starting to form in her eyes. "I know, I wanted you to know that I see it now. I see what I did, what they did, how wrong it all was." "Okay, okay, yeah, okay, I hear you, I believe you. And I hope you do better in your next relationship. I hope you find someone your family respects, or I hope you learn to tell them to fuck off when they don't. Either way, I hope you're happy." "Are you happy?" I thought about it, really thought about it. "Yeah, I am. I'm happy. I'm free. I'm living my life for me instead of trying to fit into someone else's expectations. So yeah, I'm happy." She finished her coffee and stood up to leave. At the door, she turned back. "That money, the wedding gift, what did you do with it? Does it matter?" "I'm just curious." "I kept it, put it in an account. I'll probably use it as a down payment on a condo eventually, something that's just mine. No family money involved, no strings attached." She smiled, but it was sad. "Good. I'm glad you kept it. You earned it." Then she left, and I sat there alone with my coffee, and I felt nothing but a distant fondness for the woman she might have been if she'd been braver, if she'd chosen differently. But she hadn't, and that was okay. Because I'd chosen myself, and that had made all the difference. A year after the divorce, I bought that condo. 2 bedrooms, one for me and one for an office. Bright and open with big windows and a balcony that overlooked the city. I furnished it slowly, carefully, choosing things I liked instead of things that matched some aesthetic someone else wanted. A comfortable couch, a good bed, art I actually enjoyed, instead of neutral prints that went with everything. I started dating again. Nothing serious at first, just reminding myself what it felt like to be wanted, to be chosen, to be with someone who thought I was enough exactly as I was. I went on bad dates and good dates and mediocre dates, and I learned to trust my instincts about people. Learned to walk away when something felt wrong instead of trying to fix it. I met someone eventually. Her name was Lauren, and she was a teacher, and she thought my truck was cool in an ironic way. She met my mother, and they talked about books for 2 hours while I made dinner. She asked about my family, and I told her about the divorce, about the wedding, about the trash cans, and the 8 years of trying to be good enough. She listened without judgment, and then she said, "That's the saddest thing I've ever heard. Not that you got divorced, that you spent 8 years thinking you needed to earn your place in your own marriage." And I realized she was right. That was the saddest part. Not the ending, but all the years I'd spent trying to earn something that should have been freely given. All the years I'd made myself smaller, so other people could feel bigger. I didn't make that mistake with Lauren. I showed up as myself. No apologies, no trying to fit into her expectations, no working extra hours to prove I was generous enough. Just me. And she loved me anyway. Loved me because of who I was, not despite it. We got married 2 years later. Small wedding, just family and close friends. My mother cried. Lauren's parents gave speeches about how happy they were to welcome me into their family. We sat at a table with everyone we loved, inside, with real chairs and flowers and string lights overhead. No trash cans in sight. During the reception, Lauren leaned over and whispered, "Are you happy?" "I am. I really am." "Good, because you deserve to be." And sitting there with my wife, who chose me every day, with my mother who'd always known I was enough, with friends who saw me and valued me and made space for me, I finally believed it. I deserved to be happy. I deserved to be chosen. I deserved to matter. It had taken a wedding where I was seated next to the trash to figure that out. It had taken 8 years of trying to belong to people who didn't want me. It had taken walking away from everything I thought I wanted to find what I actually needed. But I'd figured it out, and now, sitting at this table where I belonged, where everyone wanted me there, where no one questioned my right to take up space, then I understood something I wished I'd known years ago. You can't earn belonging from people who have already decided you're not worth it. You can only find people who see your worth without you having to prove it. People who make space for you not because you've earned it, but because they want you there. That's what family should be. Not blood, not obligation, not a hierarchy you have to fight your way up. Just people who see you and choose you and make sure you know you belong. I found that eventually, but first I had to walk away from a wedding where I was seated next to the trash. I had to keep my $25,000. I had to divorce a woman I'd loved because love without respect is just a beautiful lie you tell yourself until it breaks you. I had to choose myself. And that choice, that single moment of standing up and walking away, changed everything. And it cost me my marriage and 8 years of my life and whatever future I'd imagined with Rebecca. But it gave me back my self-respect. It gave me back my voice. It gave me back the understanding that I mattered, that I deserved better, that I didn't have to accept crumbs from people who saw me as less than. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is walk away. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is refuse to accept how people treat you. Sometimes the only way to find your people is to leave the ones who don't see your worth. I learned that at a wedding where I was seated outside next to the trash cans, where my wife waved at me from the doorway and turned away, and where I finally understood that I'd been invisible for years and no amount of trying was going to change that. So I took my gift back. I walked away. I filed for divorce. I started over, and I found a life where I wasn't invisible anymore, where I mattered, where I belonged. That's worth more than any wedding gift. That's worth more than 8 years of trying to fit into someone else's family. That's worth the pain of walking away from everything you thought you wanted to find what you actually needed. If you've ever felt invisible in your own life, if you've ever tried to earn belonging from people who made it clear you didn't matter, if you've ever been seated next to the trash while everyone else got a place at the table, this is my testimony, my confession, my evidence that walking away is sometimes the only way forward. You deserve to be chosen. You deserve to matter. You deserve a place at the table, not next to the garbage. And if the people in your life can't see that, if they can't treat you with basic respect and dignity, then they don't deserve you. I learned that the hard way, but I learned it. And now I'm here, on the other side, happy and free and living a life where I'm not trying to be good enough for people who've already decided I'm not. I'm just being enough for myself and for people who see my worth without me having to prove it. That's the quiet revenge, not destruction, not punishment. Just building a better life with better people and letting the ones who didn't value you fade into the past where they belong. That's the truth. I wish someone had told me 8 years ago, but I'm telling you now, whoever you are, reading this and recognizing yourself in my story, you're worth more than the trash cans. You deserve better than invisible. And the moment you walk away from people who can't see that is the moment your real life begins. Mine did, and I've never looked back.